Where do you live? Tennessee somewhere?
Yeah, Mooresburg.
Okay.
People mistake Mooresville, Mooresburg.
Okay.
You know, but it's a small town.
Yeah.
I live on Cherokee Lake, and real secluded, real private place.
Yeah.
It's a nice place to race out of.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of YouTube video of your shop with all the airplanes, and learned a lot about you. You know, as we study up for having our guests on this show, we kind of do a little bit of homework. But your name for everybody in motorsports. I'm a stock car guy. I think no matter where you grew up or what you raced or what you're into in motorsports, everybody knows your name. And you are a racing god. You are an American badass. I've had so many friends of mine text me knowing that this interview was going to happen, sending me questions to ask you. And somebody texted me this morning, one of our crew chiefs for our Xfinity car here in this shop. It's like, you get enough sleep last night? Because you're about to be in the presence of greatness.
He's not lying, though.
No.
He's not lying.
I just have always wanted to meet you. I've never met you, ever, which blows my mind because figured at some point our paths would have crossed. But you're 58 years old, and you've been doing this for a really, really long time.
42 years.
So I don't even know when it was that you became that persona. For one, I think it helps that you have this really sick last name. You know, that your name is just...
I've thought about that, you know, and I think that really, I've thought about it because I have so many young kids, I think love saying boomer or bloomer or just something that I think that had something more to do with it than I realized.
Yeah. I think your name is unique. You don't forget it when you hear it. And so, you know, when people, you know, hear about you winning a race, I'm talking years ago, it clicks, right? It sticks with you. And so when you hear that name again and again and again, but
I want to tell you a real unique name is my great-grandparents. Both of their names were Axel Bloomquist and Isel.
Wow.
Axel and Isel Bloomquist. That sounds pretty damn serious.
That does.
Not going to beat those names.
My daughter was mad at me for not naming her Isel.
Really? So, you know, and then you go out there and you're incredibly good and win, you know, everything. What is up with your style? Like
well, you mean my hairstyle?
Yeah,
or
no,
what?
like you're jamming Marilyn Manson out of the back of the hauler, and you know you've always had long hair. You've always kind of been this outlaw, you know, outcast, not anything like anybody else that's there. And where does that come from? Is that a childhood development? What's behind all that?
Well, I think first of all, my old man said he was never having a long-haired kid, so that really messed him up. Because I mean, the day I turned 18, what was I saying, right?
Yeah.
But like I've been on stage with Pantera, backup vocals to love, you know, just I love rock and roll, and I've sat across from Marilyn Manson and putting on his makeup, getting ready to go out for a show. A good friend of mine he drove for Florida Coach and had all these bands, and so I got to see a lot of bands and go out and experience a lot of things.
Yeah.
And you know, a lot of things you talk about and lots you won't.
Yeah. So music.
So we're here to talk about the ones you won't. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That'll be in the book.
So
man.
music drove a lot of that.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I've got some, like I love Shinedown. I like the latest stuff I like, and I recommend anybody listen to Nothing More, Tired of Winning. That's right now one of my favorite songs.
Okay.
And it kicks, and it almost gets to the end, in the end where it almost slam dances in it. But you can understand, I'm really a fan of music. You can understand what they're saying.
Sure.
Not just rah, rah, rah.
Yeah.
You know, so, you know, when I went to Australia, I went there to race, but I really ended up just going there to surf. And growing up in California, I learned to surf, and that was something when I moved to Tennessee to race, there was no more of.
Right.
And then the last year, I went there for 5 years, but the 5th year, I didn't go to race. I just made enough friends that just went over there to go surfing, and we went to every cool surf spot in America or in Australia, from Perth to Melbourne to Brisbane to Surfers Paradise to all of it, and went to raves and just they had more fun than the law should allow.
Yeah. Australians know how to have fun.
Yes.
Yeah. Where were you born?
Iowa.
Iowa. How do you end up in California?
Both my parents went to school together in Iowa, and both of my grandparents they farmed a square mile in Iowa. My dad was an electrician and decided it was too cold to be up on poles in the winter, and he took an interest in flying, and then pursued that. And when I was 6, we moved to California
For a job he had.
for him to pursue getting more hours to pursue becoming an airline pilot, and he did succeed. He's probably one of the only ones that's ever become a chief pilot with American Airlines without a day of college.
No college. And so were you went to flying school?
Well, my dad taught me to fly. He said he didn't have to teach me to fly. He said some you have to teach. He said you just could fly. And I'll go. I've got an airplane. I've got a Piper Cub, and me and him are halves on a Champ. And then he builds World War I airplanes from scratch and flies them off. We got a grass runway. But yeah, I soloed when I was 16, and he sent me to the school that no one fails because they just cram the answers. and guess who failed, right?
Yeah.
I was surfing and had a girlfriend and just had a 57 Chevy that had a 406 on nitrous and was street racing and flying. If you're any higher than 500 feet, I don't really care about flying.
Yeah.
I just thought, man, I didn't really. He thought maybe I'd pursue being a pilot, and like he did, and I knew when one of his good friends told me he was the best pilot on the planet that I didn't want to compete with that.
Sure.
And I was like, what do you mean? I mean, how can you make that statement? What makes you be able to say that? He said, your dad is the only pilot that's never crashed a simulator.
Yeah.
I said, good enough for me. I'm not going to be a pilot. I'm just going to fly for fun.
Yeah. And so they throw everything they can at you in those simulators, and he's
the only one that's never crashed it.
Yeah. So you still fly today.
Oh yeah.
And what type of license do you have? Do you have a license? What are you cleared type for? No, you just jump in
I've
and go.
never been pulled over yet. I just take off from our place and land at our place.
You just go around in the sky a little bit?
Well, no, I fly under the power lines, not over them. I fly on the water. I usually fly to go look for fish. I like to striper fish. And in the fall, like this time right now, like I almost went yesterday to look for them. But I can take my plane up and fly the lake. And this time of year, they're breaking on the surface. And you can spot them because their white bellies are rolling. And once I find them, then it's time to get the boat. If I don't see any, I wait for another day.
If you like that conversation with Scott Bloomquist, you ought to listen to the entire podcast. The Dale Jr. Download is available on all major podcast platforms.